If you were to just take a quick gander at the headlines alone, then you would be under the impression that Meghan Markle's As Ever brand is going great and that the wine launch was a huge success because all the headlines are focusing on it's sold out. Sounds fantastic. But there are so many red flags surrounding As Ever and the Meg, as well as these launches. And saying it's sold out is actually quite meaningless when all the other details surrounding the situation are being kept secret and hidden. And one has to wonder why. Why are we hiding the numbers, Meghan? What's going on? So let's clear this up a bit. As she is preparing to ship the handful of wine orders that she got, we can see a distinct strategy for As Ever unfolding before our eyes, and it's extraordinarily risky, and some might argue not the most ethical way to conduct business. As we previously discussed, I'll try to link the video here, and I'll definitely link the playlist at the end of today's video that has the videos covering the brand launches so far. But there's risk to relying too heavily on scarcity marketing. It'll come back to bite you in the butt. But also, now at this point, we've seen 3 rounds of her goods selling out quite quickly. And then these media blitzes follow suit super quickly, like immediately. Meanwhile, none of these articles and reports and Instagram posts from Meghan herself specify the quantities, the units sold, nor does it tell us how many are available in the first place. And this has begun to make everyone, even her fans, incredibly suspicious. It's clear that Meghan and perhaps some of her team are manipulating this situation to create a certain image, to project the image of a successful brand, of a successful situation. And this is bizarre for so many reasons. One of which is because as soon as it sells out, then they put out a press release to all of the news outlets. Meghan Markle's brand sold out. They weren't paying attention, but they get notified, so then they go ahead and write an article about it. So they're purposefully sending it out to the media to turn it into a publicity thing without letting anybody know just how many are sold, which we're going to get to in a moment. But it's also strange because when you think about it, Netflix doesn't do this for any other product situations, you know? When Bridgerton tea becomes available, it might be in an article that, oh, on such and such date, there will be some new merchandise available. But rarely do we hear anything else about it because they keep it in stock and it's just there. It's there to buy if you want it. They don't need to tell anybody about it. They don't need to make it a news story. It's not a publicity thing. It's just something nice for fans, right? So that's another strange angle to this. Why is this being treated in such a different way from what Netflix's product arm usually does? And part of that is just because Meghan has control over a lot of the situation and is trying to make As Ever its own thing. She's trying to keep it for her ego. Meghan really wants As Ever to not be outwardly, obviously associated with Netflix. She really, really wants to keep it more as her thing, even though her involvement is so surface level and just mostly about the packaging and presentation, apparently. But anyway, back to things selling out. A lot of this sold out, overhype being publicized more than what is typical points to most certainly micro drops or super small quantities available, because the constant over-the-top PR push that there's significant quantities rather than hard numbers, that it's a testament to the popularity of the brand, and the Duchess herself lumping herself in with this is so conspicuous. This is so bizarre. These articles literally have quotes from Meghan's press release that it's a testament to the popularity of the brand and the Duchess. That is a quote from Meghan's press release about this, that there were significant quantities, not explaining just how many quantities. The reason why you wouldn't tell us the actual number is because it's small. There's no reason to not tell us the number if it's a big, impressive number. That's something to be proud of. So clearly, their plan is to artificially inflate the reputation of As Ever's ability to succeed in order to either sell it off or to just simply create more buzz, which I can only imagine they are hoping will eventually translate into more sales and actual sales. If they make it seem like a big deal, then more people will come and buy stuff. But that's not how it works when you have a crappy product. And it's even more so not how it works when the person smothering the brand is unlikable and one of the least popular people ever to be in the public view. When you have somebody so polarizing involved and putting themselves in every single photograph and advertisement of the brand, like Meghan is, then it's going to deter a lot of people. So it's not adding up. And it's super weird to be putting out press releases at all about this, but also to be saying that it has something to do with the popularity of things. It's just so transparently all connected back to Meghan's narcissism and ego. But let's take a step back, because context is really important when we're talking about sales, what sort of numbers we're looking for in terms of what would be categorized as successful, and thereby we can infer Meghan's would be much, much less than successful numbers, right? So we do have examples of what a successful brand launch in the alcoholic beverage space specifically, if we want to look at just the launch of the wine, for example, we have examples of what that looks like when a celebrity is involved and it works well and we have success. So let's compare a handful of these that are considered successful to what Meghan has been doing. And let me just preface this by pointing out the extreme delusions that Meghan apparently has for As Ever and the wine. She thinks that it can reach the level of Casamigos, which is a brand we are going to talk about first. Meghan compares herself to Casamigos in one of her little news bits, that it could one day sell for $1 billion just like Casamigos. You cannot imagine. Like, it's so difficult to understand somebody so delusional. It really, really is. What could possibly be going through this person's mind to make them think that they can compare to something that successful? So, Casamigos, a tequila brand, if you're not familiar, was acquired for $1 billion. I think it was like 7 years ago, maybe, something like that. And some media have foolishly taken that bait laid by the Meg that she wants her wine to be compared to Casamigos because it's a great brand and it has a good reputation. And so she's throwing that in with her press releases. Yes, it's hilariously out of touch, but I'm surprised, honestly, that more journalists haven't challenged that to point out how laughable that is. But really, that's nothing new for the Meg. It totally tracks with her pattern of behavior and her grandiose thinking. But anyway, the celebrity behind Casamigos is George Clooney. And he helped launch this brand, but he actually kept himself out of the spotlight, which pulled a beautiful marketing trick, actually. Because he didn't get involved in any of the ad campaigns or, he didn't do any photo shoots, he didn't do any interviews directly for Casamigos when it launched at all. And because of this, it sparked curiosity, it had a little bit of mystery to it. It also felt like a really classy move. Casamigos' early success was nothing short of phenomenal. It leapt from 38,000 to over 120,000 or 170,000 cases in just a few years, which was one of the most successful in recent history. However, that hyper growth created a little bit of supply chain friction, and the brand and its later owner struggled at times to keep the shelves stocked. The result was stellar demand and not always enough tequila available. However, Casamigos was considered extremely successful in terms of market demand, especially for a new celebrity-founded brand in a crowded category like tequila. Surprisingly, George Clooney didn't participate in any of the early advertising or marketing at all. It thrived on a word-of-mouth reputation for being a great product. We made it just for us, and we wanted everyone else to love it as much as we did. Not because it was Clooney's, but because it was really good tequila, the co-founder said. It leaned into a laid-back, aspirational lifestyle rooted in the founders' friendship and their shared time in Mexico. The name Casamigos means house of friends, and early branding leaned into this casual and personal vibe. George Clooney did appear in behind-the-scenes stories and interviews, but not in any ads, giving the brand a sense of insider cool rather than overt celebrity promotion. And because word was out that George was behind it, they ended up with a lot of free PR from magazines because it made for a great story. And we could draw some degree of a parallel between how Meghan is having stalking issues to how they had some stalking issues. But the huge difference here is that they were stalking in the tens of thousands and then in the hundreds of thousands, and still were struggling to keep it stocked because it was so popular and such a great product. Meghan does not have the same sort of situation going on here. Surely she is maybe maxing out at about 1,000 units of these things. Like, that's probably the maximum, because that would be kind of an embarrassingly low enough number for somebody like Meghan, and the way she's been like going around talking about how she's a CEO and a founder and on the Time 100 Summit and on podcasts talking up a big game. If she's only moving in the hundreds of units, less than 1,000 units per item, then yeah, that would be reason to hide it. Because that would be embarrassingly low. That's very, very small territory for somebody doing what Meghan's doing. For other startups and stuff, like that can be a totally reasonable number to start out at. It totally depends on the type of business, the level of capital involved, the level of advertising involved, and all of those sorts of things. But for somebody like Meghan and the way that she's talking about it and going around, puffing her chest out that she's this fancy CEO now, you would expect then the numbers to be in the tens of thousands. And I really don't think they are, because if they were, there would be no reason not to say how many units you sold or to make available a certain number of pre-orders or something like that, some sort of account on the units. But Casamigos, taking that quieter approach with impressive but very steady growth, really, really worked, because George Clooney's sort of loose and background involvement created huge initial buzz, allowed them a little bit of a free PR boost. It appealed to both casual and upscale drinkers in its taste profile, and its product is reviewed well. It had a smart marketing campaign. It also had rapid word of mouth from bartenders and from people who had tried it, which led to and contributed to high repurchase rates, meaning people were coming back for more. They were like, where can I get that for myself to have in my house once they had tried it at a bar? And that makes a huge difference. The ability to have return customers allows you to grow exponentially rather than just linearly, because you're just trying to get new people all the time. Having people come back and building a fan base, so to speak, around a product is one of the biggest keys to merchandise and products and food good. And there was a little bit of that scarcity appeal, that it was kind of hard to find at times. So if you did find it, maybe you would buy a few bottles if you were a real fan, so that you didn't have to wait around until, you could find it again. And so all of those things contributed positively, but people didn't view the stock shortage negatively because it was new and because the numbers were published. People knew how many units and that they were trying to exponentially scale it up, and they were trying to keep it in the shelves, but it was such a good product. The demand was so high and continuing to grow. While the next brand we're discussing harnessed the power of the celebrity's popularity to skyrocket the brand launch into rapid success. In another incredibly successful tequila brand launched by a celebrity was Teremana by Dwayne Johnson, which took a totally different approach to George Clooney's, but found equal success. Though they haven't sold their company yet, like Casamigos did, for $1 billion. Dwayne Johnson still owns Teremana, but it's worth a lot of money, and it's doing really, really well. Their first year sales was 300,000 cases. That's very impressive. That's one of the fastest sales growths in the history of spirits sales. And Dwayne featured in the ads. He is the voice of the company and hands-on behind the scenes. While Casamigos is not available in retailers like Target, Teremana is, which certainly boosted its profile and accessibility and aided in it reaching over 1 million cases within 2 years. While Casamigos was more exclusive and took about 4 years to hit 1 million cases, but they are both really good metrics here. And Dwayne was helped along a lot, not only by it being a good product, but by having such great popularity, such a positive reputation, and a huge reach with massive amounts of followers on social media and whatnot. So him being in the campaign was a huge benefit to Teremana. So although these are both celebrity-launched alcoholic beverage brands, they are different to Meg in many, many ways with her As Ever wine, obviously. Perhaps most significantly, just quality. You know, Meghan has a reputation already for As Ever products not being that great of quality, while Teremana and Casamigos benefited from having great quality, first and foremost. But also, maybe more prominently, George and Dwayne are generally well-liked. George has a quiet public presence, but many fans, and he's seen as relatively respectable private celebrity. Keeping himself out of the initial marketing campaigns gave a sort of mysterious appeal that let his star power stimulate curiosity rather than overt selling. Dwayne is one of the most popular celebrities with one of the highest approval ratings we've ever seen in the celebrity space. He appeals to a massive range of audience, also because he's been in the sports industry, the entertainment industry, he's an actor, he's done, launched other product lines as well, not just Teremana. He also has Papatui, like a self-care product line in Target. He's also really active on social media with nearly 400 million followers and millions of fans, which means millions of people open to trying his products or having an interest in his products. He's well-liked and has a big reach, literally and figuratively. The Meg is sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum to these men. She's been voted one of the most disliked public figures several times in recent years. She has a really negative reputation. She's kind of annoying when she's in the news and whatnot because it's usually for something negative or whiny or just kind of self-aggrandizing. She's coming off on the heels of With Love Meghan being really, really negatively reviewed, not received very well, very, very boring and bland, in which her cooking skills and her taste are very questionable. She's also just kind of scrapped a podcast that totally flopped, and so people are not exactly primed to receive As Ever with open arms and excitement the way they maybe planned it, with their structure of having As Ever launch alongside the show. The plan, surely, from Netflix's side of things at least, was that it would stimulate interest in buying the products and trying the products, and it just hasn't happened because it's the Meg. She also doesn't have anywhere near the reach on social media and whatnot. She doesn't have as many people to draw to her page to actually be interested in what she's saying in a positive way. She has people who watch her and pay attention and write articles about her, but it's usually more in a we're just reporting on something that's happened because we've gotten a press release about it, or a critical tone, because she drives everybody nuts. As Ever suffers, really, from Meg's lack of popularity and lack of approval. There's a lot less interest. There's a lot lower numbers of people willing to try the products because remember, it's not just something Meg is giving you to rave about her online and give her positive reviews and positive feedback. It's something that you pay your hard-earned money for. So if you don't like it, you will say so. You will let people know that it sucked because you're going to be mad that you spent your money on it. And if you don't like Meghan, you're not going to be willing to try the products. You're not going to be willing to give it a chance. Furthermore, As Ever as a brand, including the wine, really lacks a clear identity, a clear story of what this is. Why would we choose Meghan's over anybody else's, especially since now it's come out that all of the products she's selling, you can just buy direct from the people who make them. You don't need to buy it with Meghan's packaging and Meghan's label. You can just go buy it straight off Williams-Sonoma or Republic of Tea or whatever. You can just buy it from them. Much cheaper, the same product. While Casamigos and Teremana had clear positioning from day one, luxury chill versus tequila for the people, Meghan's wine has no pricing, messaging, or audience targeting publicly defined. The brand so far focuses on aesthetics and mystery over clarity or value proposition. Casamigos and Teremana scaled really fast, from launch to thousands of retailers in under a year. As Ever is positioning more like a niche luxury item, which can work, like Goop, for example, but it hasn't shown any commercial ambition or execution yet, and Meg's profile simply isn't of the same caliber. Casamigos and Teremana are also business-first, consumer-driven spirits brands with clear missions and executions, and they are appealing to a consumer with a vibe. And As Ever doesn't really seem to have much of a vibe apart from just the Meg, because she's making it all about herself. As Ever is currently more of like a personal lifestyle extension or a branding experiment, with these sort of attempts at a luxury soft touch vibe, but no proven business traction, and everything is falling a little bit flat, a little bit amateur, sort of B-team appearances to things, and the negative reviews on the other products certainly aren't going to help give it any sort of momentum. Until Meghan offers clarity around production, pricing, distribution, or a public launch of some sort, it cannot be considered in the same league as these other celebrity alcohol powerhouses that she wants to be included in this club. Additionally, neither Casamigos nor Teremana had direct-to-consumer sales, at least not initially, but the Meg is. She's doing direct-to-consumer sales. So while it's important to note what these celebrity brands can and have done and what success really looks like in this space, let's take a look at some other types of launches, wine specifically, that are going to be a little bit closer to Meg's format with direct-to-consumer. So there's several stronger, more strategic launches that we can examine to get a little bit of a better comparison on what Meghan specifically is attempting with the direct-to-consumer wine. And these examples that we're going to talk about next offer a sharp contrast to Meghan's soft and vague approach. Here, these celebrity direct-to-consumer wine brands had much clearer launches with a much more defined sort of image and message, a better market reception, and stronger consumer engagement than As Ever. For example, Cameron Diaz's Avaline. The branding was clean, transparent wine, focused on wellness, organic grapes, and ingredient clarity. The launch strategy was clear messaging, being clean wine, sustainability focus, and had transparent founders. The immediate press blitz and influencer outreach, as well as the nationwide direct-to-consumer availability, really helped to spread its name and its accessibility. It reached 75,000 cases sold in the first year, and then it expanded to Target, Whole Foods, and major retailers, which went great. That is considered a wonderful success. It had a clear value prop of being something a little bit more natural or clean, authentic founder messaging, and mass access. Also, Cameron Diaz is generally well liked. Barrymore wines. Drew Barrymore had a wine line, or started a wine line, many years ago. I think it was like 2012 or something like this. I didn't know this, but I thought that was kind of funny because, the Meg went on the Drew Barrymore show not that long ago. I'll try to remember to link that video for you. It was pretty interesting. Drew's wine focused its branding around approachable, family-style wines with a California/Italian flair. The launch strategy was for Drew to be actively involved in the winemaking and the branding, partnered with Monterey-based winery, and it distributed both online and in grocery chains. It worked because of her storytelling, and her personal investment gave it credibility, plus the availability for people to go and get it in the stores. Because a lot, like Cameron Diaz, a couple of the next ones we're going to be talking about, Drew Barrymore, they know who they're marketing to. They're marketing to wine moms to some extent. People who are maybe fans of them or who know of them as celebrities, maybe watched their movies and whatnot, will be a little bit more inclined to try their wine. And so where do these women shop? They're not going down to liquor stores. They're not ordering off of specialty websites and whatnot. They're going to want to pick it up at their grocery stores. They're going to want to pick it up at Cheerget. And so that's where they made it available. Very, very smart. And so it's becoming more and more clear that Meghan really doesn't have a defined target audience. She cannot decide if she's trying to market to an older batch or a younger batch. She has no idea. She doesn't know. She probably doesn't care. And I can't help but think Meghan maybe kind of got this idea of doing wine from Drew because Drew did it first and she somehow knew about Drew and wanted to go on Drew's show. She specifically asked Drew to let her on her show. Anyway, Sarah Jessica Parker's In Vivo by SJP wines focused on stylish premium wines with a full fashionable marketing push and a polished heavy press campaign that aligned with Sarah Jessica Parker's public image and persona, so it felt like it made sense. Even Post Malone's Maison No. 9 was hugely successful, with over 50,000 bottles sold during the pre-sale alone. And then there's John Bon Jovi's Hampton Water too, which had a direct-to-consumer and a retail approach. It was a rosé lifestyle brand co-created with his son. Its launch strategy was to focus on authentic storytelling around summer, family, and the Hamptons, which even makes sense with the brand name of Hampton Water. It had a boutique feel, but with a wide availability, which made it a little bit unique. It helped it to stand out amongst the rest. And it had serious quality. It had very high critic scores from Wine Spectator. And it worked because of a strong personal story and immediate retail access. And of course, having a really high score, people are going to be drawn to that. If they're going to spend a little extra for something and they see that it's reviewed well, they'll be more inclined to part ways with their money. And his, in particular, being called Hampton Water, focusing on summertime with the family in the Hamptons, makes total sense. That was genius marketing and branding there. And so as you can see, all of these celebrities with better approval ratings, more fans, had better success in this sort of an endeavor, which is a massive problem for the Meg. People just don't like her and she has a really negative reputation. But they also have a larger profile in general, these celebrities do. They have more followers, they have more chances to get the eyeballs on the products and the announcements. More people are going to be paying attention to it. And they're also not hiding their numbers or their metrics. You can see how many units were moved in the first year on most of these. You can see how many pre-sales they had. If you look it up, it's available somewhere. Why isn't the Meg doing pre-orders? She could get a more accurate feel for how much stock she's going to actually need. The reason is because the interest isn't there, and so the numbers are underwhelming, and there's no sense in doing pre-orders because there's just not enough interest. But there's a lot more flaws to As Ever's approach, especially when we consider the wine launch specifically. It was mentioned in 2024, and then it was teased really, really briefly before it launched on the same day as other products launched. When she announced that there was a restock of some of the gloopy jam and the bland dead flowers, she at the same time teased that the wine was coming. This muddled up the messaging, which drove down the impact. She's had a really vague identity for this brand so far. California lifestyle is like the closest we can get to discerning what this brand is supposed to be, but that's not really specific enough to be a brand itself. That's incredibly vague, and the spindly handwriting feels unrefined and sort of ostentatious. It comes up short and it looks unprofessional. It looks amateur. Overall, As Ever has had really weak traction, and we've also had the problem of all of the promotional pictures being so Meghan focused. Relying almost exclusively on Instagram posts for your marketing campaign is foolish, quite frankly, especially for Meghan. And she is in every single As Ever post or picture or promotional image so far. But yet she seems to distance herself from the brand by not avidly promoting it for herself on her own Instagram, and also not really coming out and seeming proud of it. You know, like she's hinted at it and she's talked about it on her own social media, but she's not like pushing it. She's not really promoting it like she's proud of it. Just saying that they sold out, as we said, is meaningless without the numbers and the metrics. And just saying that stuff is available is just kind of doing the bare minimum. If she was actually proud of this, she would be saying, we sold 10,000 cases. We sold this much. This is amazing. I'm so thankful, blah, 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 blah. This is such a wonderful product. I'm using it today. Da-na-na-na-na. Those types of things. She would be telling us how proud she is of everybody involved in making the product and bringing it to you. You know, that type of stuff. She'd be doing this a lot if she was actually passionate and excited about these products. Meghan Markle's As Ever wine has so far lacked 3 core ingredients of a successful celebrity wine launch. Clear positioning, meaning there's no clear value, there's no mission, there's no unique angle, There's no real identity to this wine or this brand. It just looks bland, boring, and beige. It's not the most accessible product. There's little opportunity to engage. Obviously, once people finally get it, they will be posting reviews. But the fact that she didn't tease it properly eliminated the opportunity for people to talk about it and get a little bit of buzz about it and stuff like that, like you would think for a normal brand. I mean, people aren't going to do that anyway because they don't like Meghan, but if it were a normal brand, you would want that announcement that it was on the way to create a little bit of excitement and buzz and linger a little bit. Then the lack of engaged promotion. Meghan isn't using her voice or her platform to build excitement in an appropriate way for this. Unless the rollout shifts into clear messaging, real product access, and active storytelling, as ever risks being seen as an aesthetic-only lifestyle vanity brand rather than a serious wine label. Where is the effort behind it? She just doesn't care. All of this was a big fat mess. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure you're subscribed so you do not miss my upcoming videos, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye!